Good afternoon and welcome to WaterSense and Energy Star Resources. Our presenter today is Alicia Mars from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I'm Hal Krimmel, a professor in the English department and also a member of the University Environmental Issues Committee. Alicia Mars coordinates new homes partnerships and outreach, as well as partner recruitment for the U.S. EPA's WaterSense program. During her time at the EPA, she also managed the Clean Water Indian Set-Aside Grant Program, which provides funding to tribal communities for wastewater infrastructure. Prior to EPA, she worked as an environmental planner in Washington State. Ms. Mars holds a BA in Environmental Planning and Policy from Western Washington University's Huxley College of the Environment, and an MA in Global Environmental Policy from American University in Washington, D.C. Please welcome Alicia Mars. I don't know if you want to have a mic in there?
Yeah, in there's fine.
Okay.
So less variables, the better. So thanks for everybody for having me. I just want to give you a little heads up. As you heard, I'm not the Energy Star expert. I'm the WaterSense expert. So we work very closely together, the Energy Star and WaterSense programs. So I'm going to present on their behalf today. And this is my first full Energy Star presentation. Of course, I get 2 ballrooms for that. But it should be good. So WaterSense and Energy Star are 2 of EPA's voluntary programs, partnership programs, and labeling programs. So how many people have heard of Energy Star? Yeah, probably all of you have Energy Star appliances or labeled appliances, products, maybe even live in an Energy Star labeled home. How about WaterSense? Who's heard of WaterSense? Okay, that's pretty good. So Energy Star is 20 years old, 21. WaterSense is almost 7. So we're much younger. We also this is the perfect example of that energy gets the focus and has been on everybody's mind in terms of sustainability for the last 20 years or so really strongly. Water is just coming on board. So this is something that we're really trying to push with limited resources, as you can imagine. So I'm going to actually angle this over here a little more so you can hear me, but if you can't, wave or something. I jumped. So what is Energy Star? I'm going to blaze through some of these because I have a feeling most of you know what Energy Star is. Energy Star is a voluntary partnership program to promote energy efficiency. So they do that through labeling of products, homes, and buildings. And they also do that through just general outreach, marketing, consumer marketing campaigns to spread the ethic of energy efficiency. In addition to having this labeling program, they also create a lot of tools and resources that anybody that partners with Energy Star can use, and often just general members of the public can grab from their website, all to promote energy efficiency. So as I mentioned, Energy Star's just celebrated their 20-year anniversary last year. They have more than 20,000 partners across the country. There's more than 60 product lines that can earn the Energy Star label. You can find it on everything. Basically, you find it Lowe's and Home Depot, Sears. So you know where to look when you want to know what something's about 20% more energy efficient than the other products in its product category. During those 20 years, or 21 now, I guess, there have been great reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that would have been otherwise if there was not these products bearing the Energy Star label. We estimate that utility bill savings have grown to nearly $230 billion over the last 2 decades, which is really quite extent. Oh, and apparently I'm moving slides on my own. I'll have to watch that. But basically, the strength of the program is by building on interest, not just from the government, we want you guys to use less energy, but what industry can do to promote that. That promotes their product, and that's reliability and relevance. And also consumer preferences. People want something that's energy efficient, that's going to save them money on their bills, and that's going to perform well. So Energy Star has kind of siloed things, or we've organized things into residential and commercial, institutional, industrial. We say institutional on the WaterSense side. So forgive me if I start throwing WaterSense in instead of Energy Star. We're on Energy Star now. So on the residential side, we've got products in your homes, those 65 plus products that can earn the labels. There's more than 1,600 manufacturers that manufacture products to earn the Energy Star label. Usually they're about 10 to 65% more efficient, and you can often see what that efficiency is on the product in the stores. New homes are at least 20 to 30% more efficient than standard new homes. And there's also a movement to make existing homes more energy efficient as well, since not everybody's going out and buying a brand new home, especially right now with the housing market the way that it's been. So on the commercial side, there's a focus more on the big building approach and corporate energy management. So this is benchmarking using Portfolio Manager, the goals, upgrades, looking at the whole building. You can label that for excellence depending on your score on Portfolio Manager. They offer technical assistance. They use at least 35% less energy. There's certified products that can be in those commercial buildings. And then there's also resources for industrial and small business networks. So we've talked about the 20 years of their success. An example of kind of breaking it down into 1 year with 2011, Energy Star prevented about 220 million metric tons of GHG emissions, which is the equivalent of taking 41 million vehicles off the road, which I think out here with the air quality issues, you guys can really appreciate what that can do. I just want to point out, so it's not confusing, there were not 1.3 million new homes that were Energy Star labeled in 2011. That is the accumulation of all the homes total that have ever earned the Energy Star label. But tens of thousands of buildings have been benchmarked over that last year. So in addition to the labeling side of the buildings and the products and specifications for those, as I mentioned, Energy Star is also about marketing, consumer awareness, spreading the ethic of energy efficiency. So some of the things they do, it can be really creative. It can be partnering with the movie The Lorax. So if you saw that, you saw little plugs to Energy Star throughout at the beginning and the end, and you could kind of see the message being conveyed throughout it. There's also a lot of pledges that you can pledge to use less energy, social media campaigns. I'm sure you've seen many of those things kind of come through your various radar screens. The Energy Star portfolio, some of the ways to break it down is that focus on product efficiency, the new and existing home efficiencies, commercial building efficiencies, and then industrial efficiencies. So we're going to walk through some of those. To start with homes, and this is the side that I participate with most since I work on WaterSense homes, which we'll talk about later. So in the last 20 years, more than 1.3 million new homes have earned the Energy Star label. That's really exciting. There's a lot of emissions and a lot of energy that has been saved because of these homes are now bearing the label, and it doesn't have to be a McMansion or a really fancy home for somebody to have an efficient home that they can afford and have reduced utility bills. In addition to those homes that have earned the label, the new home stock, there's also a home energy yardstick that anybody, and you can all go in and pull it up on the Energy Star website or just Google home energy yardstick. I did it this morning actually. And you can plug in your utility bills for the last year and compare yourself to your neighbors and see what kind of, how your home and your energy bills are matching up to the people near you. We also work with our other partner federal agencies to help encourage them to build their housing stock, like HUD, to be more efficient, because those are some of the people that need their efficient, lower utility bills the most. So switching over to the commercial side, there were more than 7,500 buildings that were certified with the Energy Star label in 2011, and about 16,000 or a little 1,650 were benchmarked. So benchmarking is when people are going into Portfolio Manager, which there's a training tomorrow, and I am not leading it, so I'm not your person for answering questions on Portfolio Manager. But what I can tell you is that it's really important for building managers, whether they're anybody that's participating in the National Building Competition or using Portfolio Manager, to put all the information in that they can about their facility, whether that's energy or water. We just started working with Energy Star to have that water factor included as well, and it's a really important way for us to be able to gather data that was not before being captured, so that we can really measure what kind of water efficiency practices are actually going on, and the same thing with Energy Star. So you can participate in the Battle of the Buildings. They just started sending in their data for the last year, I think a couple weeks ago. I think it closed a week or two ago for 2011, and it's kind of like a biggest loser savings competition. But we really do encourage any commercial and institutional building that you're working with to do this, and it opens up again in July to start benchmarking your efficiencies. So some of the building types that are eligible to participate in the building challenge are up here on your screen. This shows there's about 15 building types that are eligible, and we're always evaluating new types of buildings to participate. So if you have any questions, just contact us, and we'd be really interested to help capture that data. Portfolio Manager, what I can tell you is that it's undergoing a bit of an upgrade. And so what we're doing is updating the database architecture and a few of the other services that you're going to see on this screen. And again, what I find most interesting and important is that we're also updating it to include more emphasis on water. So there's a lot of different ways that water information can be captured now in relation to the energy savings, because in many buildings, using energy efficiently and using water efficiently are very linked. And so it's really important for us to be able to capture that information simultaneously. So for those Energy Star products, we've kind of jumped back to that first one. Again, we talked about how Americans purchased more than 280 million Energy Star qualified products in 2011, and that adds into the more than 3.5 billion products that have been sold since 2000 bearing the Energy Star label. So they range from 20 to 65% more efficient, and it's just a great, easy way for consumers to just know which one to buy that will help them save money on their utility bills, because that's usually what they care about the most. The cheapest, and it's got the Energy Star label. So these are some of the categories that can earn the Energy Star label. Everybody knows about the CFLs and the lighting. In commercial and food services, we've got dishwashers, refrigerators. There's office equipment, heating and cooling, appliances, your home electronics, and even the home envelope. So this goes into retrofitting your existing home. So it's almost limitless what Energy Star has created specifications for. So this is just another way to look at these categories of Energy Star labeled products. So I think in the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving. So to kind of go back to the very beginning of what Energy Star really represents, it's all about kind of bringing together the ethic of energy efficiency and using that label. About 80%, and we saw probably more of you in this room, of Americans identify the the Energy Star label, and that is amazing. In terms of brand recognition, that's up there with Nike and some of those other really very famous and profitable brands. So for something like a government-run efficiency labeling program to have 80% market penetration or recognition of their label, it's huge. So what this means is that consumers know where to go. They know how to alter their behaviors, and they can recover the investment that they may have to make in buying a more efficient product by buying an Energy Star labeled product. Oftentimes, Energy Star labeled products, and the same is true with WaterSense, come in all cost points. So somebody doesn't have to buy the more expensive one to achieve those savings. I think we've got most of those. So this is a confusing and kind of intimidating slide. And this is just an example of how a product would earn the label under the Energy Star specification development cycle. This is something that is somewhat ongoing, but essentially what happens is that we are collecting information about how a product might have nationwide energy savings impacts or water savings impacts. And if there's something that we see can really make a difference, then we start a process of research and development, collecting information. We'll release an NOI, a notice of intent, that we are looking at developing a specification. We hope that people like you that may be studying energy efficiency or water efficiency will submit data during that time to help us propel this along. There's public comment periods and things of that sort. And eventually we release a specification that the products have to meet. And often that includes not just efficiency criteria for the product, but also performance. And so how does Energy Star maintain its relevancy? It's doing pretty well, but when all the products can earn the Energy Star label in a product category, then they need to ratchet it up a little bit and tighten down the hatches and make people push a little harder to earn the label. That can be a little controversial. The manufacturers don't always love us when we are encouraging them to make their products even more efficient. But it really keeps the integrity behind the brand and behind the label. So because there's such a high market share in some of them, they need to do that. That happened with Energy Star New Homes. They just released version 3 of that specification, and it's tough. It's a lot harder. It's about 15–20% more efficient than the previous version, which was version 2 of Energy Star New Homes. So it's an important aspect of both programs, but it also means that people can have a lot of faith in what stands behind the label. So, any questions about Energy Star before I transition us over into WaterSense? Yeah.
I noticed on your list of buildings that university, college type buildings are not on there. And I know EPA is talking about adding them to the list. Do you know when they might be added?
I don't know when they might be added, actually. And given the current budget climate and what might happen tomorrow, it's really hard for me to say. So I think, we're continuing our work, but I would probably just say don't hold your breath. That if it's in the pipeline, hopefully it will happen as long as budgets don't get too smashed. But yeah, that's the party line right now. Okay, so we're going over to water. Oh, that was good. That's the opposite of Marco Rubio. Okay. So, WaterSense. We'll talk about as I spill water. That's why it's not by the computer. The need for water efficiency, I'll talk about that a little bit, and then we'll transition into what the WaterSense program is. And I'll talk a little bit about the products, the consumer marketing side, get into new homes, and then we have a new set of commercial best management practices that we just released. So, the need for water efficiency. I've been to a couple sessions already today that have talked about water scarcity in Utah, and they were great. And I think it's really important and fantastic to finally hear water being referenced at a sustainability conference, when usually you hear mostly climate, mostly energy. So this is really exciting. So the need for water efficiency, as you'll see on this screen, which you may have seen in other presentations, is increasing. Our population has doubled, but our thirst for water resources has more than tripled in the last 50 years, or from 1950 to 2000. You can't probably see it terribly well on this screen because you're mostly far back, but basically the states that are colored the darkest, so the dark blue is the darkest, those are the highest water using states by domestic water use, so gallons per day per person. So Utah is up there with 4 of the states in the country that use the most water per person per day. Then there's percentages within each state to indicate how much their projected percent population change is expected to happen by 2030. So most of those states that are the darkest are also the states that are expected to grow the most in population, which really means that we really need to start thinking about how we use water just per person per day. This isn't talking about those big facilities, ag use, industrial stuff. This is in our homes, what we can do to help relieve this stress. And additionally, so when I'm out here in Utah, in Colorado, and Arizona, it's really kind of easy to get people to understand the need for water efficiency because you've had a lot of dry years. You're the second driest state in the country. When I'm talking in Massachusetts, it's a little harder in Chicago. So the other flip side of the coin is that even if you have a lot of water resources, reducing your use of water, making your water use more efficient, also really relieves the stress on your infrastructure. So every jurisdiction, every community has infrastructure upgrades to their water systems that need to happen. They're all growing as well, so you need to add more infrastructure. The less water you use, the less water you send through the processing, you can postpone some of those infrastructure upgrades, and that's going to be huge in terms of your budget savings, the country's budget savings. A lot of that money comes nationally, so there's a lot of things that we can do just by using a little less water to help in a lot of ways. So you've seen various versions of this today, and most of them were more recent than the October 2012, but this is just to show how things have changed since 2007. Drought is happening. Water scarcity is a reality. We're talking about it in January and February. in areas of the country that we hadn't before. I have colleagues that work in the Kansas City office, and they told me 2 years ago that they didn't need to talk about water efficiency because it wasn't in, people didn't care in the midsection of the country that is dark red right there. So things are changing, and we need to be able to be receptive and ready for maybe not having the most reliable water sources that we have in the past. So water and energy are tied. There's no way around it. Every gallon of water has a huge energy footprint, and often in many areas of the country, the more energy you use, that also has a big water footprint as well. So moving, treating, heating water. California uses 20% of their energy just to move water from one part of the state to the other state, part of the state. So reducing our energy use can really help with our water, and reducing the amount of water we use obviously can help with energy. So they go hand in hand, and you'll often see when we talk about how much water we've saved, how much energy we've saved as well as we go through this presentation. So WaterSense traditionally had focused mostly on water use inside the home. 70% usually is used inside the home and 30% outdoor. Out here in the arid West, it's flip-flopped. And there's a lot of really great water efficiency, water smart landscaping initiatives that are happening in this region, especially in Utah, to help mitigate that. And I have a feeling that's why Utah was bright blue on that map, is because so much water is used outside the home. And I'm from southern Arizona, and I know exactly what that means. When we're talking about inside the home, most water is used in the bathroom. So the good news here, before we get any farther, is that every product in the bathroom can be WaterSense labeled now. So there's easy ways to cut that use down. And then the other product on this screen is a clothes washer, and that's ENERGY STAR labeled. And we do a great job of passing data along and helping when we're developing specifications. So there are water factors for clothes washers as well. So water is not just used at home, it's wasted. We estimate that US homes lose about 1 trillion gallons of water every year just to leaks. So that really annoying faucet that you hear in the middle of the night, or that toilet that ghost flushes. I had a water bill that was $200 high because it was 2 months of a ghost flush. And all you had to do was fix the flapper. So there's so many really cheap ways that you can fix leaks and prevent them and save a ton of money and a ton of water. Going back to that bright blue Utah and all those arid Southwest states that use a ton of water per capita, 50% of the water used outside the home is wasted. That's either inefficient watering practices, wind, evaporation, people that have their sprinklers on timers and they go off in the rain. That used to happen at my high school in Tucson, the 2 days it would rain a year. But there's a lot of ways that we can really mitigate that. So we've talked about water efficiency and why we need it. Now we're on to WaterSense, and what is WaterSense? So basically, WaterSense is the water version of ENERGY STAR. We're a voluntary partnership program, we have a label, and we're basically here to help spread the ethic of water efficiency, whether it's by working with manufacturers and retailers to encourage them to manufacture and label water-using products like toilets, shower heads, and faucets, or just with the general public to help convince them that saving water is something good. It's not going to make them uncomfortable. They don't have to take 2-minute showers. They don't have to never flush their toilets. Saving water is easy. It's not painful. So what's special about WaterSense? And some of you may remember those low-flow toilets of the 90s that everybody was so excited about and then put in their houses and hated. Nobody wants a toilet that doesn't do its job. And a toilet you have to flush 5 or 6 times to get to do its job isn't going to save any water anyways. So when we created the WaterSense program, one of the integral parts behind the label itself, and if a product can earn the label, it means that it performs well. We don't just have efficiency criteria saying that it's 20% more water efficient. It also has to meet performance criteria as well. And when we created the program, we also set it up so that each product that earns the label has to be independently inspected and certified. EPA doesn't do this. We have piggybacked on the existing inspection processes that already happen in the manufacturing sector because of plumbing and all those other codes. So they already have inspectors and certifiers in their facilities. They're doing it. This is not a resource burden on the government where we're getting to decide if Kohler gets to put that label on their toilet. This is something that's happening outside us, so it's impartial, and there can be a lot of confidence behind the label and its validity. So, to date, these are the products that can earn the WaterSense label. So the two commercial products on this screen would be flushing urinals and irrigation controllers. I say flushing urinals because waterless urinals or non-water using urinals do not fall into this category. They don't use water inherently, so they can't really be more water efficient. So basically, you also don't see composting toilets. We're looking at things that use more water efficiently. We're trying to move the market and nudge it forward incrementally. So in the grand scheme of things, all of these products, if they've earned the WaterSense label, are at least 20% more efficient. They can be even more water efficient than that, but they just have to meet that efficiency barrier. So there are many Energy Star products that use water. So those clothes washers, dishwashers, and we've worked with them. There's water factor criteria, so you can actually go onto their website and look at the specifications and see how water efficient it is. But they have to be water efficient as well. We don't want to steal from one jar to feed the other. So like Energy Star, WaterSense really relies on its partners for its strength. This is just kind of a list of the organizations that are eligible for partnership. There's about 40 WaterSense partners in Utah, definitely room for more. A lot of those are individuals actually that are irrigation partners. But one aspect that I did notice that there are no builders yet that have become WaterSense builder partners to build WaterSense labeled new homes. So if you know any builders out there that are interested in building more water efficient homes and getting recognition for it, I would really give them a nudge in that direction. They not only would be the first WaterSense builder partner in the state, they would probably be the first one to build a WaterSense labeled new home, which would give them a lot of public recognition and positive encouragement for what they're doing for their community. And becoming a WaterSense partner, working with WaterSense, promoting water efficiency and the WaterSense label can really set somebody apart in their business. As we've talked about, energy is usually what people talk about and think about when they're thinking about sustainability and green. It's always energy. So by kind of taking the next step and being the first person in your community or first business or organization to really think about water efficiency, you can set yourself apart as a pioneer and a real champion of water resources in your area. So I think as water becomes even more and more important than it already is here in Utah, there's a lot of opportunity for people to be those champions of their communities. Bearing the WaterSense label makes it really easy to identify the product is efficient and performs well. Same thing with a home. And it's the right thing to do. People feel good about themselves when they know that they're doing something like saving water. So the WaterSense program came into existence in 2006. So that means we're almost 7 in June. And in that time, we're working on our 2012 accomplishments at the moment, so I don't have any updated for that. But we estimate we've saved about 287 billion gallons of water since 2006. So that's enough water to supply all the homes in Georgia or Arizona for an entire year. And that's just from products that have been shipped and sold that are bearing the WaterSense label. It's pretty amazing, and it's not hard. I mean, the great thing about WaterSense label products is that they come in all cost points. So you can walk into Home Depot and five or six WaterSense labeled toilets. No big deal. Often your local jurisdiction is giving a rebate. You can get it put in and may not even have to spend any money. WaterSense shower heads, same kind of thing. So like Energy Star, we also do a focus on consumer messaging because that ethic of water efficiency is hard for people to think about. Water is really cheap. So why would you want to use less unless you really have to? Unless your local water organization or utility is telling you that you can only water 1 day a week or 2 days or whatever it is in a drought, you really don't think about it. In the winter, when there's lots of snow on the ground, you don't kind of feel like you have to use water efficiently. So what we've done, we have a side of our program that focuses on consumer marketing. And as we go through the year, we do have times of year that we really focus on outreach. So one's coming up, March 18th through the 24th is our annual Fix the Leak Week. And that's where we really focus in on communities and get people to really think about fixing those leaks to save that trillion gallons of water that are being lost. We have a new program that's coming up called the Sprinkler Spruce Up, and that's to really get people thinking around May 1st or so to check their sprinklers and their irrigation systems for leaks and make sure they're up to par before they start wasting water and really using them in the summer. Shower Better is a program that we launched last fall, and it's kind of ongoing, but we try to focus on the fall as people kind of move inside the house for their home improvement products. and think about just installing a WaterSense shower head is a really easy fix that anybody can do. They don't have to be an expert in home improvement. And then we have a campaign called We're for Water, and that is our ongoing umbrella campaign that we had a road trip. We have a little spokes gallon droplet. I don't have her with me, Flo, and she did a road trip across the country, stopping at various landmarks, spreading the ethic of water efficiency, asking kids what they do to, do they turn the water off when they brush their teeth, things like that. But basically, the emphasis behind that program is to make people proud to save water. They're doing it not just for themselves, but for their community. So they're saying that they're saving it for their family or future generations, or I can do it. I can, fix my leak or not water my lawn every day. Okay, so that was general WaterSense. Now I'm going to move into some of our other more specific parts of the program, some of our new and revised specifications. So I talked about the products that can already earn the label, and we do have one that's out for public comment right now. So if you are interested in commenting on pre-rinse spray valves, we have a specification, and the public comment period is open through April 8th, but we'll get to that in a second. So in case you don't know, a pre-rinse spray valve is that mechanism, I guess, in commercial and institutional kitchens to help remove food. So, you spray it on the dishes, and it actually accounts for 1/3 of the water use in a commercial kitchen. About 32 billion gallons of water is used nationwide with pre-rinse spray valves. Pre-rinse spray valves are a water and energy using product because pretty much always using hot water. So we have been working with Energy Star to coordinate on this to make it as efficient as possible. The standard right now, the EPAC standard, is 1.6 gallons per minute. And now what we're proposing is ratcheting it down to 1.28. So that's 20% less than the current federal standard. And the criteria would, in addition to the the specification would include efficiency criteria as well as spray force criteria and life cycle testing to ensure performance. So if the specification remains as stands and is not significantly altered, we expect that more than 7,000 gallons of water can be saved each year in one kitchen using a WaterSense labeled pre-rinse spray valve. That's the equivalent to nearly 5,000 racks of dishes in a commercial dishwasher, which is pretty amazing, and a lot of water saved. In addition to the water savings, it would also reduce the amount of energy used each year in a kitchen by the amount of natural gas. This one's a little confusing. It would take to run a convection oven for 12 hours every day for 3 weeks. So that's 3 weeks of savings, basically, on your convection oven, just because you had a better spray valve when you're washing the dishes. And we expect it could amount to $130 million in water and energy bill savings nationwide. So that pre-rinse spray valve specification is up on our WaterSense website. You can go in and take a peek. We are having a public comment webinar on March 20th, and I invite anybody who's interested to participate. You can go in and register for that if you are interested in that spec. And this is basically an example of how we develop our specifications before we issue the label. Moving on to the New Homes program. When we established the WaterSense New Homes program, we noticed that many of the nationwide green building programs had a very low emphasis on water conservation. So to redeem that, we created a national water efficiency program. There were some local jurisdictions that had more locally focused ones, but this one works in harmony with LEED, NHB Green Building. We designed it to match Energy Star's certification criteria so that people can get multiple labels and still have an emphasis on water efficiency. We have just recently revised the specification to include units in multifamily buildings as well. So that's a really exciting development because of the multifamily sector's strength of the market. So WaterSense labeled New Home, and this is one in Colorado Springs, which was the first one in Colorado. Use 20% less water, and that's just inside the home. They also include a component that is a homeowner education manual that the builder is required to give to the homeowner when they move in, so they know how to continue the water efficiency practices that they have and don't go and switch everything out and water their lawn all the time and so on and so forth. And building a WaterSense labeled New Home is doing so much more than just putting in a toilet, which is great, but it's going to save a lot of water, and so it really is a great way to encourage community infrastructure savings, especially if you have new developments coming on in water-scarce regions. So why would somebody want to buy a WaterSense labeled new home? Well, hopefully they won't even know the difference. I've been working with a lot of our big builders. I'm like, what do the new occupants say about their home? And they're like, they won't tell us anything because they say they don't know. They don't know any different. And I'm like, that's great. That's what we want to hear, that they feel they're not losing out on anything by having a water efficient home. So we have estimated that a family of 4 could save 50,000 gallons of water a year as compared to a typical home in a WaterSense labeled new home. And that's just inside the home, not the outside, because that data varies so widely across the country, it's nearly impossible to come up with a good stat for that. But that's about $600 a year in utility bill savings, and can be, since products are available at every cost point, can really be swallowed up in your mortgage pretty easily. So, I mentioned that we revised the specification, so version 1.1 just went into effect on January 1st for new homes. Basically what that's doing is adding on the allowance for apartments, condos in a big multifamily building. They're eligible to earn the label, and it's just the individual unit, not the whole building. And then if there were certain WaterSense labeled products that weren't available initially when we designed the spec, so they need to be labeled if included. All right, last section. We're working into our newest category, which is commercial and institutional. So, water used, now we're jumping all the way out of our residential, and for commercial and institutional, water utilities and infrastructure, hospitality, warehousing, that's about 17% of water used from publicly supplied water. So that doesn't account for wells on ag land that may be private and things like that. So you can see the breakdown of how each sector within C&I uses its water. And there's a lot of variability, and there's a lot of players involved. So what resulted is needing to look at a lot of different cross-sections. So some of these buildings, if we're looking at big high-rise buildings, have pools and have outdoor criteria that we could match up with some of our other specifications. But there's laundry, there's kitchen and dishwashing, cooling and heating. And then there's just other things that are pretty standard that maybe people weren't doing at all, or often they weren't, like sub-metering, or metering your building's water use at all. So what we did at WaterSense, because we don't quite have the budget right now to do a whole building labeling program like what Energy Star has, is we created a very comprehensive set of best management practices. It's pretty huge. It's on the website, it's a PDF, bookmarked, so you can flip through it. But it's extensive and designed so that anybody can take it and use it to maybe create your own water audit for a building. Building managers can use it when they're entering their information into Portfolio Manager and they want to account for their water use. There is information on water management planning, which and the first two, water use monitoring and education, if anybody's ever going to look at, those are the first two sections. You can skip the rest, and as long as you get those two, that'll be a big start. Not that I want you to skip the rest, but. So in each chapter, we incorporate WaterSense labeled products, other water efficient technologies that we may not be labeling yet, and techniques for both new and existing buildings. So I'm not going to run through what everything is in each section, because I think you guys can read that and figure it out. But I think it's a little bit more interesting to look at the features of the document. You can see how you can pull it out. There's features, there's calculations and equations that you can plug in to figure out what your water savings are, tables, fact sheets. There's a ton of resources in here. We also have checklists and case studies, comprehensive case studies that we've done for each of the chapters, which are great reference points for just getting started if this is something you haven't thought about before. So using the BMPs, basically, they're a technical resource that apply to all types of buildings. We worked with Energy Star on many of the aspects, and we wanted them to line up so that Energy Star's existing partners could use them to start thinking about water as well as energy, because some of them are great. People have got energy down, but water is a place that they can really make some movement. It's a low-hanging fruit that they can capture. It really improves the quality of data in Portfolio Manager, and it has very specific materials for subsectors. So again, with colleges and universities, it doesn't call them out specifically, but many of the building types captured in the BMPs you can use those resources for what's on your campus. So that main message was back to that water management and planning sections Making sure that people measure their water use with properly installed meters and sub-meters is huge. Setting efficiency goals, and to do that, you need to benchmark. So you need to start, calculating how much water you're using in the first place. Doing a water audit, using Portfolio Manager, and just incorporating water efficiency language into your procedures and your building management manuals and things like that. We recommend that you monitor usage and calculate savings. I know I've said this like a million times. It's because we have no data. There's no water data out there, so we really, really want people to do this. Contact your local water utility and energy utility to see if they've got rebates. They probably do, and if they don't, tell them that that would be a really great idea to encourage people to reduce their water use. Really focus on that O&M, the retrofits, and replacing products. It's the easiest way to do it, whether you're doing it in the commercial building or at home. You can get huge savings. And look at water and energy together because, especially when it comes to, say, like a hot water distribution system at a home, or when you're talking about the heating and cooling towers in a big building, there are tons of efficiency gains to be had by looking at both at the same time. So while we're not opening the door for more partners in these categories, some of our partners can use these. Anybody can use these BMPs. We also have promotional materials for our partners in their toolkit to promote these sectors. Say if it's a water utility, or like the city of Ogden was a WaterSense partner, which I don't think they are, so if they are in the room and they want to become one, great. But they can then promote and shout from the rooftops that said facility is doing a fantastic job reaching their water efficiency goals, and they can just go into our partner website and cut and paste out of all of our materials and do that kind of thing. So there's a lot of opportunities here. And that is it. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, and if you have any questions, come up, ask me. Always feel free to contact our helpline. Energy Star has a great helpline as well, so if you're not able to reach somebody directly at the EPA, and I wouldn't be surprised, our staffs are very small, that's a great way to do it. So, okay. So I think we've got time for some questions, if anybody has any. Yeah?
So in the WaterSense, like for home, is there any aspect of water reuse in this?
We don't say that you can't do it, but we don't say you have to, because it's not legal in every jurisdiction in the country. There's, like you can't do rainwater harvesting in Colorado. Some areas do not allow you to do gray water. So it's something that we encourage, but we don't have a lot of comprehensive resources within that spec, but we can point people to it. The other thing that we think it's great, but we want everybody to think of the same, as a gallon of water as the same value, whether it's reused or potable, because often when people are giving themselves extra credit for having rainwater or gray water for their gardens, that isn't an infinite supply of water either. So if there's not a lot of rain, they just turn and use their hose, So it's got a ton of benefits, but that's kind of where we're at with that. Mm-hmm.
What about water quality in your educational materials? Do you want to talk about
Yeah, we don't get too, we're just strictly water efficiency. So there's lots of other aspects of EPA's work that do touch on that, but it's not in our specification documents or educational materials. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, great. Thanks for coming. Surviving post-lunch.